Hello, how are you? Today we'll be discussing about political leadership in South Korea. We Koreans are very interesting. We always long for the advent of new leaders, powerful leaders. However, after the advent of the leadership, we tend to reject leadership. There is a very peculiar pattern of vicious cycle of leadership and followership in South Korean politics. However, political leadership offers a very valuable vantage point through which we can understand the dynamics of Korean politics. Let us first define what is meant by political leadership. Political leadership can be defined as an ability of an individual to lead and guide individuals, political organizations, and the nation. In order to be a competent and effective leader, the leader should satisfy several prerequisites. The leader should have higher level of physical powers. The leader should have superior mental energies and motivational forces. Leader should demonstrate competence in communication and persuasion. And leader should show the ability to project vision and manage a big picture. Finally, the leader needs a higher level of spiritual quality, such as values, wisdom, and spirituality. But political leadership is not unidirectional. As the famous German philosopher Friedrich Hegel argues, leader cannot exist without followers. Hegel came up with the analogy of a master and servant. Master cannot exist without servant, and vice versa. Therefore, leader should have a good followers. If leader does not have a good followers, the leadership, his or her leadership cannot last long. That is why leadership is a function of followership. When we talk about leadership, the most frequent source to which we make a reference of is Max Weber's ideal type of leadership. The famous German sociologist and philosopher Max Weber suggests three different ideal types of leadership. First ideal type is a traditional leadership. Traditional leadership is characterized by patrimonial, tribal leadership. And such a kind of leadership is based on vertical and hierarchical control. Most of the tribal leaders show that kind of patterns. Therefore, for example, in today's Afghanistan or Iraq, sometimes these traditional leaders in the small villages, they have a more influence and authority than the government representatives. That is a typical pattern or the classical pattern of traditional leadership. Their seniority matters, and family tradition matters, and hierarchical and the patriarchal nature of relationship in a society becomes very important factor. But Max Weber came up with another type of leadership, that is charismatic leadership. Charismatic leadership is based on personal competence, vision, and charm. Charismatic leaders usually demonstrate unusual, extraordinary communication capability and persuasion capability. For example, Kemal Pasha, the founder of modern Turkey, is a good example of charismatic leader. And Abdul Gamal Nasser of Egypt, when he staged the military coup, military revolution, and founded a new contemporary Egypt, his leadership was charismatic. And some scholars argue that Charles de Gaulle of France also demonstrated that kinds of charismatic leadership. Finally, rational leadership. Rational leadership can be found in contemporary democratic nations. It refers to leadership through personal and structural performance, ability to extract resources and distribute those resources to society, okay, and ability to regulate society and ensure safety and effectiveness in society, okay, and other kinds of so-called rational leadership, okay, can be the source of the legitimacy for leader. But in contemporary world, leader can find its legitimacy and respect from the people from his or her performance, particularly structural performance. In other words, when a leader manages national governance in an effective and persuasive manner, we can call the leader a rational leader. Leadership can be further differentiated, okay, depending on its style. Okay. Certain leaders show democratic leadership. Democratic leaders show honest, competent, forward-looking, inspiring, fair, broad, courageous, and imaginative qualities. And democratic leaders usually depend on consultative and consensus-building process. Okay? It's not necessarily top-down one-way approach. It is really a combination of, democratic leadership really combines both top-down and bottom-up two-way communications. On the other hand, authoritarian leadership refers to direct control and supervision of the people by the leader. By definition, authoritarianism refers to arbitrary rule. Therefore, authoritarian leadership is based on arbitrary rule. It usually involves top-down approach, and there is no room for dialogue and communication. And obviously, consultation and consensus building are lacking in that kind of political leadership. Another type of leadership is paternalistic leadership. It is very similar to the traditional leadership in the Max Weber's typology. Okay. Paternalistic leadership refers to, is based on organic conception of leadership. Okay. Leader versus follower, patron versus client. Okay. What Japanese call the oyabun versus gobun. Okay. In other boss versus followers. And in Lebanese politics, the Juam system is a perfect example. Juam literally refers to factional leader. Okay? Factional leader create patron-client relationship with the community members. All these kinds of things show traditional paternalistic leadership. While certain leaders can demonstrate laissez-faire leadership. Simply speaking, don't do nothing. Decentralized power. Okay. Neutral leader just play as a neutral umpire. Okay. And laissez-faire leadership can be compared with an analogy of a market system. Market system, ideal type of market system is a laissez-faire system. Therefore, that kind of decentralized leadership. And finally, we can talk about transformative leadership. Okay. Usually, leaders are supposed to manage existing society or political organization within its own framework. But certain leaders wanted to change, transform. Okay. And they wanted to redirect followers through intellectual stimulation and group vision. Okay. It is what some earlier modernization theorists called the revolution from above in the process of modernization. Major revolution in 19th century in Japan or Kemalism in Turkey, or even revolution from above can be seen during the Park Chung-hee period in South Korea. Likewise, leadership styles vary from country to country, from the certain period to another period.